As a small business owner, have you ever felt overwhelmed by the pressure of choosing the right hire or leading a team? Or have you ever found yourself tolerating a bad hire because you fear trying and failing again as you repeat the hiring process? If so, you're not alone, and you are in the right place. Welcome to the Growing Your Team podcast. The Growing Your Team podcast teaches business owners like you to expand your unique business by teaching you to master the hiring and team management process. Hiring and managing a team does not have to be a challenge. You just have to learn to do it right. And the Growing Your Team podcast teaches you how to become a confident leader who hires right every single time. Now, let's jump into the show where each episode you will learn tips on how to identify what type of help you need on your team, how to source amazing candidates, how to conduct interviews that lead you to your ideal team member, how to onboard successfully, and how to lead every person in your business so you have a team of rock stars who you are happy to pay every single paycheck. So let's jump in and teach you how to hire like a pro. Hello, Jamie Van Kuyk here, and welcome back to the Growing Your Team podcast. Today, I have on guest Brad Farris. Brad is known for helping agency and expert firm owners grow through the $1 to $2 million barrier to become thriving $3 to $5 million agencies. For over 20 years, Brad has worked alongside agency owners to help them sharpen their focus, raise their prices, and hire better people so that firms can scale. In his work with hundreds of agency owners, he's learned that success is driven less by what you do than who you decide to be. And the biggest hurdle of your agency's growth is between your ears. I am so excited to have Brad on the podcast today because I have known and been working with Brad for years now. As you'll learn more about in our conversation, I have had the pleasure of helping Brad help his clients with that growth and being able to get the right people on their teams. And today we are really talking about some of the biggest things that hold business owners back when it comes to wanting to achieve that growth, and how it is so important to have the right people alongside you when you go to achieve your goals, and how people is one of the biggest factors when it comes to being able to be successful at executing your strategy. So this is a great conversation that I had with Brad. So let's jump right in so you can learn more about how you can go from working obsessively in your business to the entrepreneurship freedom that you desired to have when you started your small business. Hi, Brad. Thank you so much for joining us today on the Growing Your Team podcast.
I'm super excited to be here.
Yes, I'm so excited to be having this conversation. But before we jump in, tell everyone a little bit about yourself and your business.
Sure. My business is Anchor Advisors. I am an executive leadership coach. I work primarily with small business founders, helping them to level up their leadership. So if you get to the point in your leadership where you're frustrated with the results that you're getting and you suspect that maybe the reason you're frustrated is something about you, that's a good time to call me and we can work on that.
Yeah, which I think is great because even those of us who have maybe more natural leadership abilities than others, like no one really teaches us how to be a leader. We're just sometimes thrown into it. Like I remember my first management job, it was just like, wait, there's all this stuff about leading that I didn't know. And it's different when you're on that other side. And then especially in your own business, when you have no one internal to turn to, it's just like, what do I do? There's no one providing you the feedback of, you probably shouldn't have done that way. Because sometimes your team's too scared to speak up. So it's definitely like, I think everyone should go through leadership training and continue to go through leadership training, because as you grow and evolve, like you learn different things about yourself and your styles and your teams and everything. But before we get into more of that, like I just want to take a moment to tell everyone like how I know Brad, because Brad and I have known each other for years now.
Oh,
And
a
I always
long
think,
time, seriously.
yeah, it's been over 5 years now. I think it was
I think
early
it's over
2020.
10.
No, no, it
Really?
hasn't been over 10. No,
Because
because it
you were
was,
on Breaking Down Your Business.
yes, I
Okay,
was.
so not
So
2019
it
or
it might
2020.
have been the end of 2019
Yeah.
because I know we met up in person. I was in Chicago, flew for a conference, then was flying back out of Chicago. We met up for person. It was March of 2020 that we
Okay.
met up,
Yes, I
and
remember
then
that.
and
Yep.
then and then everything shut down after
Yep.
that. So probably one of the last people you met for coffee before everything closed. But we met because I was, as Brad said, like I was a guest on his podcast, and the funniest thing about that is I almost backed out of that podcast appearance. I almost did. And the podcast Brad was running at that time, it was business owners coming on and sharing about like a problem they had, and he was there and he had a co-host, and they would give you advice. So it was like on the spot, like just kind of like business coaching and everything. And I was terrified to show up for this podcast because I was still very new, very fresh in my business, and I was like, I'm having problems because I'm not capable. Like kind of in that mindset of like
Hmm.
I don't want to get on and share that I'm having problems in my business. Now, all these years later, I realize that every business owner at every level is having problems in their business.
That's
The
exact.
problems just look,
That was the whole point of that show, was to
yeah.
demonstrate that we're all like that, right?
Yeah, and it's just like you have different problems and you have things you've never experienced before that then come up, and things that worked well when your business was one size and now it's not working well when your business is another size. But I almost canceled it, but finally I was just like, you know what? I can go on and get some advice. I don't ever actually have to share this with my audience that I was on this
That's
podcast,
right.
but I can go and get this advice. And after the conversation, Brad is like, "Hey, I was actually looking to find someone like you to help with my clients. Can we talk more?" And it turned into this wonderful business relationship.
Yes.
And here we are a little over 5 years later, and we
Yes.
still great people in each other's networks.
Yes. And it's you've been so helpful for my business.
Yeah.
I mean, I can't count the number of clients that you have found good people for. And when I'm working with a client and trying to grow a business, hiring good people is almost always the bottleneck to growth. And so to have
Yeah.
someone that I can send them to who can right away get them hooked up with good talent, like that has been a huge help for me.
Yeah. Yeah. Cause I think that's like one of the things that you said there. What, like, when we started, you said at that point in time, you were helping, I think, creating these strategies and everything for your clients. And then sometimes the strategies weren't working, and you were identifying that it was because they didn't have the right people and they
That's
didn't
right.
know how to get the right people. So you wanted to expand your services to be like, okay, if I'm going to spend this time creating this strategy and I want it to work because I want this client to be happy with what they paid for, they need the right people. So let's support them getting the right people as well.
Yeah, the interesting thing that you said at the top about how no one trains us to be managers. I mean, most of the business founders that I work with became business owners because they knew how to do a thing, right? Like they were designers or they were architects or they were whatever, knew how to do programming. And then they became a leader of a business. And in order to be successful at that, they have all these skills that they don't know, which is what you were experiencing when you first came on the podcast, right?
Yeah.
And
Yes.
hiring is one of the most critical skills for a business owner to have. When we hire good people, our business running our business is so much easier. And for for a lot of the clients that I work with, especially then, but even still now, hiring is not a skill of theirs. And so then they hire terrible people, and then that just
Right.
makes their business harder.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And yeah, I definitely agree with that, like full-heartedly. But I even remember one of the clients we were working with together, and and this is why it's like when I work with clients, I'm like, it's you need to be clear on what you're looking to hire, and how to find that person and be able to provide feedback and evaluate things throughout the process. Because there was a client we were working with together that they weren't happy with the candidates that we were providing,
Yes.
but they were too scared to provide us the feedback of why. They're just like, well, the next ones will be next better. The next ones will be better. But we kept providing them around the same thing because we're like, this is what you told us that you wanted,
That's
is what
right.
you needed. And then eventually they said, well, yes, but now that I'm seeing that, what I need is XYZ. And we were able to tweak things in the hiring process and get that right person for them, where they're like, yes, these are the people we want. which just goes to show it's like those, it was minor details that we changed in that job
True.
description and
True.
everything to get that person. And those minor details make a difference. And that's why sometimes we're too close to our business sometimes to really be able to pull out those minor details ourselves. But when we are able to guide that client through that conversation of, okay, what do you not like?
Mm-hmm.
What's not working?
Mm-hmm.
What hasn't worked in the past that we want to avoid this time around? Then we're able to say, okay, as that outsider, and I'm hearing all this, let me put all the puzzle pieces together, and this is who you need, and we know how to go find that person for you.
It's funny as we're talking about this, it's just connecting to a lot of conversations that I'm having with my clients. I think when you told that story, what I was thinking about is that clarity is so important in the hiring process, knowing what you're looking for. Because if you don't know what you're looking for, it's really hard to figure out whether you found it or not, right? And
Yes.
there's a lot of ways that you can be impressed by a candidate. But unless you're really clear about this is what I want this person to do, this is what's going to make this person successful, this is the kind of person that has not been successful in the past, having that clarity up front makes the hiring process so much easier.
Yeah.
And and it's true of other places too. If I'm designing a product, being really clear about what the product needs to do and how the client needs to feel. If I'm pricing, why am I setting the price at a certain level? What is that doing in the sales process? Like that kind of clarity is really important almost all over the place as a leader. And
Yeah.
when we get stuck in the day to day, it's very hard to pull back and take the time to gain that clarity.
Yeah. Yes, definitely. And like the last project that we worked on together, I remember the candidate or the client really liking this one candidate at the end, but they were deciding between a few candidates and just really sitting down and having that conversation of like, okay, you like them, but
Yes,
which one is right for
that's
you?
right.
And
That's
what
right.
do we want? And what, like, we just, it was part of the larger project where we're like, okay, we're outlining all your positions, and this is what you need, and this is what you need moving forward, and this is where you are today, and here's where you need to be in 5 years and 3 years. And so, like, so which person's going to get you there? It's more
Hmm.
than just liking a person. Liking a person in a small business is super important because you're working with that person. And if you don't like them, you're going to be miserable. So that is super important. But they also have to be the right fit. And like you said, you need to be clear on what that right fit is. And sometimes it's that what's that right fit today? And what's that right fit a year from now and 3 years from now? Can this person do all of those things? Can you grow and develop that person into that next level?
Yeah, I have something that I developed called the Australia test.
Okay. Tell
Be
me
willing
more.
to would you be willing to sit next to this person in a coach airline seat on a flight to Australia? Because if the answer to that is no, you probably don't want to hire them, right? Like you're going to spend a
Right.
lot of time with this person over the next few years. And like there was one client, I don't remember if this was one you and I worked together, but the person was clicking their pen through the interview, and like the hiring manager was saying, they can do all this stuff, but that was just driving me crazy. I'm like, don't hire them. Like that's 5 years of the rest of your life. Like, don't do this.
Yes. Yep. Or be able to be a really good leader that can be a really good mentor that helps people
Sure.
understand that those are annoying habits and that we have to coach, we sometimes have to coach our team members to be what we need them to be and understand that this is not appropriate behavior. This is what's holding you back. And but I think like kind of going back to we're not all natural trained leaders and we need that ability and that help to get to the next level is sometimes what we are really not good at is providing that feedback and being able to coach our teams.
Yeah.
And sometimes we need to be aware of that and saying, I am not there yet. So I need to bring
Hmm.
on the team that doesn't need as much coaching and doesn't need as
That's
much
right.
mentorship.
That's right.
But eventually you should probably gain those skills because even if you bring on a great team today, your business is going to grow and evolve, which means your team needs to grow and evolve, which means you need to be in charge of that.
You're bringing to mind a pattern that I've seen multiple times, and it really goes back to that owner who's really busy, that has a lot on their plate, that's trying to keep a lot of balls in the air, and so when someone leaves their team, it leaves this giant hole, and so they're doing the owner's doing their own job, plus they're doing the job of this person that's missing, and so their focus is on how quickly can I fill this role.
Hmm.
And what I often see there is I see the owner colluding with the candidate basically asking questions like, well, you can do this kind of stuff, can't you? And trying to make the person into the candidate that's going to fill that job just because I don't want to have to do these two jobs at the same time anymore. And it's just a pattern that I've seen over and over again where people make typically bad hiring decisions because they want to get out of the pain of having to do both jobs at the same time.
Right. Yes. Yeah. I always, when I'm training people on how to do interviews, I have to train them all the time. I was like, you ask the question and then you shut your mouth. And like,
Exactly.
you're not allowed to say anything else until the candidate talks. So I was like, obviously, if the candidate asks a question and say, okay, is this what you mean? You can answer their question. But I've noticed, and I was so guilty of this when I first started interviewing people back in corporate, I would lead them to the answer that I wanted to hear. And so they weren't telling me their true experience. They were telling me what I just coached them into saying.
Yes.
And it really changed the interview process when I just started zipping my lips, being like, nope, nope, don't help them. Don't tell them what you want to hear. It's even when we go and develop some of the interview questions we put on our interview guides, is like we have follow-up questions because sometimes we don't give them everything in the first question because we want to know, if we ask about this, what actually comes to their minds. And then we can direct them to some of the deeper information that we want to know and redirect their answers and say, okay, that was great, but do you have an example around this?
Hmm.
But
Hmm.
sometimes it's like, what do they really know? Where does their mind go first? What experience do they really have? Like, what is the truth versus what I just told them to tell me?
Why do you think it's so hard for us to just ask that question and then shut up? Like, why is it that we feel the need to help the candidate out so much?
So I think it's part of that kind of human nature of fill the silence. So sometimes the candidate is starting to think of their answer, and it's just that human nature to fill the silence. It is like one of those things when you hear like sometimes about like I read a lot of like the cop thrillers and stuff
Yeah.
like that, where
Yep.
they always say it's like the detective and stuff will ask a question and then just be silent, or sometimes just be silent and then wait for the person that they're interviewing and everything to start talking because it's that natural thing to fill the silence. Sometimes I feel like we also can visually see that the candidate is nervous.
Yes.
And I know I work with a lot of people that want to be people focused in their business. They want to help people. Their businesses are all around helping people. And they see this person is nervous and they think, how can I help this person be
Yes.
less nervous?
Yes. And I think that's a big deal that we both want to put the other person at ease. And I think there's a sense in which we want to be liked by the candidate. We don't want to be seen as mean or, whatever. And one of the things that's critical, I think, in the hiring process is to be skeptical. Like when you
Mhm.
hear an answer to say, is that right? Is there another example that I could get from that person? How could I ask that question in another way to really see if that's what is really behind this person's motivation? And that skepticism, I think, feels unkind or mean or something. And so it's hard to get over that, like you said, that natural human nature of trying to put the other person at ease. But that's
Yeah.
not necessarily serving you well in this context.
Right. Right. It's one of those things that sometimes comes up for me is like I'll ask a question about a specific thing, like maybe about how they've interacted with teams or things like that. But then I'm looking for that same pattern to come up in some of their other answers. So
Yes.
if they tell
Yes.
me that they're really team focused and they're there to support others, but they never mention teams in any question and supporting others, when I'm not directly asking about it, like it makes me go, okay, was that true? Or is this other one true? Oh, I
Yes.
love working with clients. Okay, well, now you just gave me an example for another example of how clients drive you crazy.
Yes.
Like, and so I'm just like, sometimes you need to connect the dots to in different questions and put the whole puzzle together instead of looking at each individual piece spread out on the table.
Yeah. Yeah, to be skeptical, to kind of pull the answers apart, to ask for a second or a third example. Like these are ways that we can dig more deeply and have a higher confidence level that the person that we're hiring is who they say that they are, right? And
Yes.
and the more that we can do that, the more likely we're going to be to hire the right person.
Yes. Okay. But I want to like take a step back. So we're talking all about this hiring. But I think the reality is there's many business owners that don't hire when they should.
Ooh,
And we're kind of obsessed with kind of the working. But I think it's like one of the things I've heard you say is a lot of us go into entrepreneurship for time freedom,
yes,
but now we feel like we're working all the time. So let's talk
yes,
more about that. Like, what are you seeing around this and how we're pretty much doing the opposite of why we started this business?
yes. I think there's two different mindsets there that can lead to this behavior. One is when we first start our business, when we're solo, there is a thing that the harder we work, the more progress we make, right? Like there's a direct correlation between the effort that we put in and the results that we achieve. And that can build a mindset that is the harder I work, the more things go right. And if I'm not working hard, I'm not moving my business forward. And so effort and results get correlated in a certain way. But when we get to having a team, the harder we work, actually, the less capable our team is of getting things done. I was actually on a podcast recently, and the host asked me, "What's the one thing that most holds back the growth of a business?" And I said, "The business owner doing the client service themselves. The more time the business owner is spending in client service, the slower the business will grow because client service is not the CEO's job. And if you're doing client service, no one is doing the CEO's job."
Ooh, I like that. And I think it comes down to one of the things I've talked about, I think, on this podcast before and other things is you have to figure out like what is your business? Is your business
Mm-hmm.
a job where you like doing the client service work
Mm-hmm.
and if you can't do this business, you're going to be happy just going to working for someone else doing that type of work. And if
Mm-hmm.
that's the case, that's fine.
Right.
Continue
Yeah.
doing the client service work. But if your whole thing is you want to be CEO of your business and you have these big growth dreams and everything, there comes a point where you need to let go of that client service work and let your team do it,
Yeah.
delegate and
Yeah.
trust your team.
Yeah. And that's where the second part is. The second part is when we start to pull ourselves out of that client work, there's an identity shift that needs to happen. And so let's say I was I did website design, right? And I started a business doing website design. And I hired a team to start doing website design. And if I start pulling myself out of doing the website design, am I still a website designer? Is that who I am? Or who am I if I'm not doing the website design? And there's this thing in the back of, I think, a lot of people's minds that when we went out on our own and started our own business, the worst case, if everything failed, I would just go get a job again, right?
Mhm.
But once I stopped doing the thing, there's a sense that, well, my skills are going to age at a certain point. I can't go get another job. I'm now in a place where this is my job. This is the thing that I can do, and I can't necessarily go plug myself back into the Borg. And so there's an identity shift there that when I take myself out of the client service work, what is my job as the
Yeah.
CEO? And that's a hard thing for a lot of people to get their heads around.
So, but do you think that's really true? Because obviously, going to this whole example of website design,
Mhm.
there's other jobs out there. There's the leadership positions in for our website design teams. There's all these things where it's just like, yes, you might be pulling yourself out of the day-to-day website design work and might not be able to go get that job. But what about those leadership jobs out there? What about those higher level jobs that now you're gaining the skills for because the fact that you moved up into that leadership role inside your organization? So, but yeah, I think it's kind of like that mindset thing that stops us. But what else can you do? What else are you
Mm-hmm.
qualified for?
Mm-hmm. It's interesting. You look at a lot of resumes, right?
Hmm.
If you
Yes,
see
I
someone that
definitely
owned,
do.
if you see a resume where someone owned their own business, the thing is, we're always looking for that resume that's the square peg in the square hole, right? Like that
Hmm.
has that if you look at their resume, this job is the natural next step to the career path that's on there. And
Yeah.
someone who's gone out and started their own business and maybe spent 5 years in their own business, all of a sudden that doesn't look like a square peg anymore. Now we're having to stretch and say, well, but they learned these things and maybe they know these things, and it is a more difficult transition at a certain point if you give up your technical skills to find that way back to the Borg.
Yeah, I definitely think that is true if you don't know how to put your skills properly on a resume for the job that you're going after. So I think sometimes, if we are going to go and write a resume and it's just from the position we're in our company,
Mhm.
we're listing all the things.
Yeah,
But you're not going to, as you said, like kind of that square peg to go in a square hole. We're not going to be the CEO of a small business going
right.
out and getting a job of a CEO of a small
That's right.
business.
That's right.
We're going to take this skill set that I have and use that skill set to go out and get a job. So you could still have the title of, your CEO of your whatever your business name is, but what responsibilities do you highlight on that resume? Is it that you're highlighting that you managed a team of 5 people? Is it that
Mhm.
you were going out and you want a sales role? So you're going to highlight the sales responsibilities and everything that you did. So it's about taking those responsibilities that you had and focusing on the right ones for the job you want to go after.
The other thing that I'll say, and maybe this isn't the right show for this, but uh, my belief is that resumes are designed to rule you out. And so if you don't have a traditional career path, the resume is not necessarily your friend. Just go meet some people. Like you're a business owner, you have a network, go meet and talk to people. You can find a job without a resume, or at least giving the resume like the last possible minute, because the resume is there to screen you out. So if that's
Mhm.
not going to help you, don't use that tool. Use a different tool. Use your network.
Yeah. Yeah, I definitely agree with that. As we talk about all the time, is like the resume is that gatekeeper for the interview. So, you know, now, I know obviously most people on the show, we're not going to go look for other jobs, but we think about
Hopefully
it as
not.
like what are we looking for? Because we might be
Yeah.
going in, the person that comes our way might be the person who was the CEO that realized I got into this business and I really liked doing that website design work. Once I was doing that leadership stuff, it was not my passion. It did not light me up. And now I want to go and work for someone else. And I want to use my skills to go work from someone else. And I don't want to do sales and I don't want to do bookkeeping and I don't want to do all those other things. So we might be looking at those resumes. So I think, yeah, networking is always a great way to find people. But also sometimes that's one of those things of like, look at the cover if they send a cover letter. Like sometimes that's one of the things I'll look at. It's like, why do they want to change things? So
Yes.
sometimes it's
Yeah.
looking at those other things and not just solely the resume.
Yeah.
But yeah, so we are these entrepreneurs that work all the time because we're not delegating to our team. And I think that is super important. Like that we need to be able to delegate work to our team to get to the level that we want to be. And it's uncomfortable at times and it's messy at times. And I think it's like one of those things is you talked about that holds us back. So we're like, then what are we going to look like if we go get a job someplace else and we let that plan B of having to go get a job someplace else stop us
Which
from being
hopefully you're never going to
successful?
do.
Yeah.
That's a it's a 2% possibility. The 98% is that you're going to lead your business and you're going to delegate and people are going to work well and you're going to be able to grow and you are going to get that freedom. I mean,
Yeah.
one of the things that I like to talk about is there are actually predictable phases that businesses grow through. That there's that startup hustle phase. Everybody has to go through that phase, right? And then you start hiring team, and oftentimes the first team members you hire are young, flexible people because you don't know what you want them to do. So you just
Yeah.
hire arms and legs, right? And you're assigning people stuff, and everybody's very flexible and covering for everybody else. But at some point, that doesn't work because you end up being still responsible for everything because you're doling out tasks. And so then the next phase after that is to hire people that have a track record of success doing a thing. And so you're hiring people to be your controller, or you're hiring someone to be your business development person, or to run operations. And so now you're hiring more expensive people with clearer roles, but those people want to have accountability. They don't want this flexibility where everybody's covering for everyone else because I'm good at a thing and I want to do that thing and I want to know other people are going to be good at their things. And so there are these phases that we go through as our business grows that actually change how we have to lead our business.
Yes. Yeah. And I think that's like one of the he just kind of like sparked something in my head of kind of like looking at it for those higher level roles, like, and those lower level roles when we first start is like you might start out and you might have an assistant, and that assistant might go and do your personal grocery shopping for you. But when you get higher in your business, let's say you go out and like you're like, okay, well now I want a personal chef that's going to be working at home while I go do things. They're not going to go in and be answering your email because that personal
Exactly.
chef
Right.
is that higher level responsibility. And so
That's
sometimes,
right.
yes, those lower level people will help you with a lot of different things, but those higher level people, they're like, no, this is what I do. I'm not
Yeah,
going to do that, the rest of
that's
that
right.
stuff.
And that makes delegating so much easier because now you hire a controller, they're telling you how the books need to be set up. They're telling you, which banks we need to work with to get a loan. Like they know things that you don't know. And that's
Yes.
so exciting that now I have people
And
on my
scary.
team that are better at things than I am.
Yep. But it's scary too to say, I'm hiring someone that knows more than me. So how do I know if they're doing the job well? How can I trust them? How can I let go of this when they're going to do more than I could ever do? It almost feels like you're no longer in charge of it. Like we're supposed to be that elevated CEO of the organization, but now we're hiring people who have skills above us.
I love this question because if you sit back for a minute, we do this all the time in other areas. We take all of our financial information and give it to some stranger who gives us our tax return back, right? I don't know how to do my tax return. I don't know how to evaluate. Are they good at that? I take my kids to school and give them to a complete stranger to spend 8 hours a day with. I don't not supervising that person, right? And so there are these situations in our lives already where we've given over control to other people. And it's really a very similar process. The way we chose our accountant, the way we decided where to send our kids to school, those are all similar decisions to how do I know whether this controller is good to run my business? And you can get advice from other people. You can have your accountant come in and do an interview. Like there are some ways that you can do that, but somehow when it comes to our business, it's much harder to give up that control than it is in other phases of our lives.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Like I feel like it definitely is. And I think it's like one of those things because we built that business from the
Mm,
ground up, and it's our livelihood. It's how we keep that roof over our head. It's how we're
mhm,
able to feed our children. It's how we're able to do so much. And we're so afraid of someone else coming in and screwing it up for us.
mhm. Because we've never screwed it up.
Right? Right? That's one of the things I talk about a lot when it comes to fear of delegating. We're like, well, someone will make a mistake. And I was like, when's the last time you sent an email and forgot to have put an attachment on it? And I know a lot of times, like sometimes like Google and Microsoft will now have the warnings come up and
Right.
it's like, you said the word attachment, but there's no attachment. Did you forget to it? But still, that was a mistake we made. We almost sent that email without that attachment. We
Mhm.
like we make mistakes all the time. We forgot to call a client back when we told them we'd call them back by the end of the day. And now we're just like, oh my gosh, like, don't judge me. Like, we screw up. Oh gosh, I remember I was presenting at a conference the other year, like I think last fall it was. And we were talking about mistakes on resumes. And they're like, do we judge people because they have a mistake on a resume? And I was like, listen, I was like, a random typo. I was like, we have to forgive that because we're human and we will read things a million times and we will read what we think was there instead of what's actually there. I'm like, if it's full of typos, full of grammatical errors, now that's a completely different thing. I was like, but we need to excuse the one off mistake. And I switched to the next slide of my presentation, and there's this glaring typo in it. And I'm like, pointing. I'm like, I can't tell you how many times I've read this presentation before I was practicing and going over it. I was like, but I never caught that mistake until I'm here live on stage. So like, see, everyone makes mistakes, and we all make mistakes. So why do we expect our employees to be perfect?
Yeah. And I actually want to go back to that story about I built this and this is the whole reason that I have everything that I have. And um, that is a cute story. um, it really makes us feel good and it justifies a lot of sacrifice that we've made and it gives us a trump card that we can play when we're faced with choices that we don't want to make like well
Mhm.
but I have to do this because this is the thing that I built and I just don't. I ask people a lot, is that story serving you? Like, is telling that story something that's giving you more freedom, or is it making you feel more enslaved to this thing that now is taking over your life? And
Yeah.
sometimes we can just hold that a little more lightly. And like you said, we've made mistakes and we survived it. Nobody threw tomatoes at you when you had a spelling error on your slide.
Right.
And I mean, I've sent the wrong proposal to the wrong client or left another client's name in a proposal that was designed for another client. And I mean, those are embarrassing, but nobody fired me. And even if
Right.
they did, I could get another client. Like just holding all of that more loosely, lowering the stakes on a lot of this stuff actually just gives us a lot more freedom and is healthier.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. I remember back when I was in corporate, it used to be one of those things if a error happened in something, we were creating all these processes to make it so the error never happened again. And finally coming back to the point, I'm just like, can we just recognize that we are human and we make mistakes and we need to actually evaluate this? Is this something this error is happening over and over and over again that we really need to create a process, or someone simply made a mistake? Mistakes are going to happen. Let's not waste time, energy, and money on making it so we live a mistake-free life. Like that everyone's so scared of making mistakes. Let's empower people and let's, yeah, like put things in place so common things don't happen. But yeah, but one of the things before, because I know we're getting close to time, is
Hmm.
okay, so we talk about these things we are this is the story that we're telling us and we're working really hard. And I know this is one of the things that kind of you do is you help people get out of this kind of being like work obsessed thing.
Hmm.
And I think it's
Hmm.
one of the powers of having that person outside your business that can really call the BS, like our
Yep.
BS mindset
Yep.
and everything, and tell us like
Yep.
exactly like what they're seeing. Because once again, sometimes we're too close to everything.
Yep.
We tell ourselves those cute stories.
Yep.
Give us some examples of some like formerly work obsessed CEOs and the positive changes they were able to make.
I was working with two business partners, um, and they had decided to give their employees a 4-day work week, not 4 10s, 4 8s, because
Okay.
they just realized that giving people a little extra time off meant that they came back more focused and productive. And they found over time that giving their team that 4-day work week, they actually got more done. Now, despite the fact giving their team a 4-day work week, they were working 7 days a week. And like
Mm.
seriously, they took maybe 4 hours off on Sunday. And one of the goals that I gave them in one of our coaching sessions is how about no work on Sunday? How about only work 6 days a week? And this was, it caused a lot of anxiety. Like, what do you mean not working on Sunday? Well, what am I going to do? Well, what do you want to do? What if you go out for a walk? What if you take your spouse out on a date? Like, what do you want to do? And so it led to this whole conversation about, well, all I ever want to do is work. But you used to have things that you enjoyed. What were those things? And so they started reconnecting with some of the things that really gave them pleasure, that gave them joy. And so they for a couple months only worked 6 days a week, and then we got them down to 5 days a week. Now they were still working 60 hours in the 5 days a week, but by reconnecting with some of the things they enjoyed, it started to give them a reason to do something that wasn't work. And
Yeah.
over time, they got to the point where now they're each working about 30 hours a week, which is what their team works. They're more productive and creative. And, you were talking about those mistakes. Like the mistakes that I've made have always been when I'm rushing through things, when I'm trying to get something done in the most efficient way that I possibly can. And by slowing down and taking a little bit more time away from work, they're more reflective and they're making fewer mistakes and their business is growing faster.
Yeah, it's that point of diminishing returns. Yeah, you can work 80 hours per week, but it's not going to be 80 good hours of work.
Yeah.
So you might as well work fewer hours and get the same amount of stuff done. Yeah, so I love that. I love that. And it's one of the things I've been reading a lot of. There's a lot of people that are busy, and there's some people busy just because they have a million things on their plate and they're involved in a lot of stuff. And then there's people that are busy because it's become part of their identity and they're
Yes.
not necessarily enjoying it. And they're actually sometimes really, really lonely at times because all of a sudden it's like, what do I do if one of these things fall off my plate? And this thing of
Right.
like, that was my entire identity being busy. The way you're describing it of like, them like, well, what do I do at this time? Because I'm always used to working. It's similar, I would think, to kind of like empty nest syndrome, where all of a sudden it's
Yes.
like, wait, I used to be a parent all the time, and now my kids are no longer here. What do I do with this time? I don't know who I am without this thing in my life. So it's
Yes.
kind of like reframing. It's like, you're allowed to do something other than parenting. You're
Yes.
allowed to do something other than working.
Yes.
Reconnect to what you love and what makes you you.
Yes. Which is again what you said at the top. This is why we left the corporate world, is that we wanted to have more choice and more freedom. And we've taken that freedom and choice and invested it all in this one basket. And your business does not love you back. It's just there, right? And
Right.
when I see a business owner who's doing a 30 or 32-hour week and their business is thriving, I'm like, you're winning. Like that's the goal. That's what we're looking for. And
Yeah.
when someone's doing an 80-hour week and they're working all day on Saturday, I kind of feel sorry for them. Like that was not the goal. That's not winning, right?
Yeah. It's like if you're gonna work that much, you might as well go get a job and take off the that extra layer of stress and responsibility of owning your own business.
And
Just
get a
just go
4 week
work for someone
vacation.
else.
Yeah,
Right?
exactly.
Right? Like how many business owners don't take vacation because they feel like they can't step away from their business? And it's like, why? You know, did you really start a business so you could bring your laptop everywhere? Yeah. So,
One question I often ask people is like, so you were at your kindergarten graduation and they asked you what you wanted to be when you grow up. And you said, I want to do concrete contracting. No, that wasn't it. You know what? How is it that you ended up here?
yeah. I think that's always like one of the things that's kind of interesting when we're talking about like kind of career paths is like, you know, what did people want to be when they were in kindergarten or growing up and what they are now? And is there ways to kind of connect the dots?
Yes.
And sometimes there's also what we wanted to be in kindergarten. You know, we were trained by our families that that's what you need to be as a doctor or a lawyer. And are you really happy at the end of the day? Or should you be doing
Absolutely.
something else? So I know for me, it was interesting because like I wanted to be an actress. That was like one of the things I wanted to be an actress. But when I would do like plays and stuff in high school, it never fully like fulfilled me. I was like, I want to be this actress, but I'm actually not enjoying acting. What I liked was getting in front of people and talking. So what do I do
Yes.
now? I get on stages and present. I have a podcast. I go on other people's podcasts. And it was just like, I knew I wanted to be talking in front of people. I just didn't know these other paths existed.
Yes. Exactly. 100%.
So anyway, all right. Well, we got off topic and we need to start wrapping up today anyway, Brad. So tell everybody how they can get in touch with you.
The best place to find me is at anchoradvisors.com. And if the idea of those growth phases was interesting to you, if you go to anchoradvisors.com/growth dash phase, there's a little 10-question assessment there that will help you to determine what phase of growth your business is in. And it gives you some ideas of things that you might want to do to move toward the next phase of growth. And you don't need to give me an email address. It's just an assessment. You can get the results right away. But a lot of people find it helpful in terms of helping point them in the right direction.
That's great. All right, Brad. So my last question that I love to ask everybody is we've all had leaders or managers that have stood out to us. Think of a leader or manager that stood out to you and share one thing about them.
My last job in corporate, the CEO was Bob Baker, and Bob was an amazing leader. I remember a meeting in which there was one leader who was failing in a certain area of responsibility, and another leader that really wanted to take on that responsibility. But these two were rivals. And in a meeting with a whole bunch of other people around, he convinced the person to give up the responsibility in a way that didn't make the person getting the responsibility feel like they were winning or that they could gloat about it. Like it was just a masterful conversation of helping people to resolve a problem without any conflict and without winners and losers. And I mean, I could tell you a dozen stories about Bob, but when I think about like the Mount Rushmore of leadership, Bob is on there.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. I love that story because it is like one of those things, like sometimes we do need to shift things in our business, but we also need to make sure that we keep the peace while we're doing it. And especially if team members are rivals, how do you make it so that there's that shift that no one feels slighted by, or no one feels like they have the ability to gloat, but it's what's best for the business and what's best for those team members too. Because also, if that one team member is failing at that responsibility, but maybe they're good at everything else in their job, and you can get that responsibility off of them, let them thrive in everything else that they're doing.
And that was Bob was talking about, Jeff, there are so many things here that you're really great at, and to put your efforts behind this thing, it just it's not using you to your best capacity. So he was complimenting Jeff in a way that made Jeff really feel great about letting go of this responsibility that he was failing in, and the rest of the organization still held Jeff in high regard, and actually held him in higher regard because he was willing to give up this thing that he wasn't good at. And so it was just a beautiful moment. Like I remember sitting there literally with my mouth open thinking, I could not have done that what just happened there. It was like watching the Olympics or like the Super Bowl or something. It was fantastic.
Yes. Well, that's amazing. Thank you so much for sharing. All
Yeah.
right, Brad. And thank you so much for joining us today on the Growing Your Team podcast.
Thank you.
Are you ready to hire a new team member for your business and you want to ensure you hire the person who can succeed in the role, make you happy, and positively impact your bottom line? Then let's talk and see how growing your team can help you master the art of hiring. Through bespoke hiring frameworks and comprehensive guidance, you will learn how to attract candidates who have the passion you desire and the skills needed to succeed. At Growing Your Team, women entrepreneurs and leaders work with us to help them expand their unique businesses by teaching them how to hire like a pro. Let's connect and see how we can help you. Send me an email at jamie@growingyourteam.com. That's Jamie, Jamie, @growingyourteam.com, or head on over to growingyourteam.com/jumpstart, with jumpstart being all one word, and let's talk about how you can become a confident leader who hires right every single time.